So we're good to go?
Yep.
Okay, all right. First of all, thank you very much indeed for joining us this afternoon, this evening, wherever it is that you happen to be this morning. Generational kinetics, what's the new normal? I posed that question for a reason. Before we get into that, we need to explain a couple of things. First of all, the fact that Holt professors are a bit different. And at this stage, I usually make the mistake of saying we also work for a living. Now, that's not to say that other professors don't work, they do. We just have other jobs. We either run a company or a consultancy or whatever it may be. I'm probably a little bit more different because for my background, I'm a graduate from the Royal Military Academy at Sandhurst. I'm a retired British Army officer. Operational duties, I was sent to Belfast, South Armagh, Derry. I've had a Gulf War, a Bosnian War. I was there twice. I'm a helicopter pilot. I'm an intelligence officer. And I ended up, I like that picture. I ended up as the NATO spokesman in Bosnia towards the end of our involvement in the Balkans. When I retired from the army, I was hired by the United Nations, and I was the senior media trainer for the UN Training Advisory Team in Great Britain. When I left the UN, I was hired by Weber Shandwick to be the strategic comms advisor to the president of Saudi Telecom, and that was His Excellency Abdul Rahman Al Yami. They were going through, and get this for Saudi Arabia, a culture change. Wow, it's almost a contradiction in terms in Saudi. But that was an interesting one, and it must have worked because he referred me to his friend, who was Dr. Nasser Marafi, and I joined the McKinsey team over there as part of Hill and Knowlton, and we were also working on culture change in Qatar. It was good stuff. It brought me into a different way of thinking about the way that we can impact change organisationally. Nowadays, what I do is I lecture and I hopefully educate people. This was me on stage in Sochi, end of last year, 2,700 people in the audience, 27,000 people outside watching on big screens. It was insane. But I also own a communications consultancy, and I help governments communicate during time of crisis. We also work on fourth industrial revolution plans, and more recently, generational kinetics, which is what we're going to be talking about today. In order to understand what the new normal is, we really need to understand what the old normal was all about. And we've worked pretty much the same way for generations. We've worked on having strategic plans made by top management leaders, fed down to the managers in order for them to be able to make sure that the workforce can get that done. And they make sure that those plans are put into actions, and they motivate the employees in the same 6 ways. And they've been doing this way for generations. And they may well look familiar. It's about the paycheck. And your paycheck at the end of the month is going to reflect the agreement that you made when you joined the company, and that will be your money to take home. That's it. How satisfied you are going to be at work, how satisfied you're going to be with the position that you hold, the work that you do, the people that you work with, your boss, etc., etc. Work satisfaction, that's the key, or key number 2. The actual relationship that you have with the person who is above you, your boss, is going to be key to your productivity. At the end of each year, have you come up to scratch? Have you done what's been expected of you? Have you worked to your deadlines? And that's your performance review. And hopefully you come up to scratch. Hopefully you are able to earn your bonus, which is what you've been working for. Management will concentrate on not what you're brilliant at, but what you're weak at, in order for you to be motivated to be able to improve yourself. And it's a traditional fact that we will look for employees to be able to itemize their weak points. In fact, Usually one of the interview questions before you even get into the company is, tell me what you're not good at. Tell me your weakest points. And finally, your job itself. What is it about your job that actually makes you good at it? What can you do? What can you bring to it? What can you improve, etc., etc. And that has been the traditional way of a normal company or organization working. And some of you may well recognize large chunks of that, if not all 6 of them, if that's something that you're doing at the present time, or if you're going into a company that you've researched and yes, that's the way they do business. Well, that was the normal. And then something happened. And I don't know the age of you, the guys that I'm talking to right now, but millennials happened. And I'm assuming there's a fair few millennials out there at the present time. And these are digital natives, the first digital natives in the workforce. They're very different from people like me, from people like baby boomers who are in senior management. I don't know if any of you have come across Professor Simon Sinek. If you haven't, please do have a look at what he has to say, because he describes millennials in the following way. So there's you, those are millennials. And he says the problem with millennials is the following. You lack coping mechanisms. You suffer from low self-esteem. You're tough to manage. You're self-absorbed. You like to be rewarded even though you fail. You like to feel special. You're impatient. You're lazy. You feel entitled. You're unfocused, narcissistic, unfulfilled. You create problems for leaders and you require instant gratification. Recognize any of those? There's probably a few of you who are nodding right now. I can't see you. But there's a few of you who are probably nodding right now, a few of those. And if that's the case, well, thank you very much indeed for being self-aware. Today's millennials employees consider a number of different things. Not so much the paycheck. It's more about their purpose in life. It's not so much work satisfaction. It's more about the development of that individual. It's not about their boss, it's about their coach, in order for them to be mentored, to be brought on, to have that sharing and relationship with their boss, who is in fact the coach or their mentor. It's not about annual reviews, it's about ongoing conversations. And the ongoing conversations are virtually on a weekly basis. If you see the orange box here, don't wait until review time to give us feedback. Continuous feedback makes it easier at review time. Already I'm looking at this as a business owner. I'm thinking to myself, well, hang about. I've already got no time in the day. I've got 25 hours work that I'm trying to shove into 24 hours. How on earth am I going to do this? It's not about individuals' weaknesses. Let's talk about my strengths. What can I bring to your company? Don't focus on what I can't. Focus on what I can. And don't talk to me about my job. Talk to me about my life. It's a completely different deal. And as baby boomers, if we get this wrong, we run the risk of not having you as part of the team. You'll leave because you're not happy there. You're not satisfied, not fulfilled. It's about not managing people. It's about leading people. And that's absolutely crucial. So number one is absolutely key. Work your way down through those, down to coaching, empowering, recognizing, and supporting. And all of a sudden, you've got an entire management structure right there and then for you. That's what you have to do. It's about constant feedback, not waiting until annual review. It's weekly, meaningful and productive conversations. Millennials want to know not just how they're doing it in one particular part of their career, but all of it, the whole aspect. Instant gratification and feedback, we mentioned that earlier on, but not confrontational. It should allow for constant adjustments in the way that they go about their work. Don't talk to them about less spare time for more money. That doesn't work. Don't talk about a 9 to 5. That doesn't work. Hierarchy? No, really not. A routine in a fixed workplace? No, that doesn't happen either. And don't over control, don't micromanage, because that just turns them off. As an example, a company called Statoil, it's a Norwegian oil company, and there's a McKinsey report on this one. I think you'd like it. They found a millennial team, or they structured a millennial engineering team, and they turned around and they said, up to you. However you want to manage this is entirely up to you. It's your own hours, your own working locations, away you go. We give you an aim. This is what we want you to achieve, but how you get there is entirely up to you. So what happened, first of all, is that this millennial team built a remotely controlled submarine from an empty beer barrel. Now, the management at Statoil were a little bit concerned about this, because that wasn't exactly what they were paying them to do. But it had to happen that way, because they didn't have a hierarchy. And what they wanted to do was to establish who was in control of the team. So they had a project which they brought to fruition, which was the remote controlled submarine. Nobody else got it, but they got it because they needed to understand exactly how the team was going to work and who was good at what. So they did that. And the end result was a 30% saving on a massive multi-million-dollar subsea system. And it's the prototype of the new CapEx subsea system. Please do have a look at it, as I say, through McKinsey & Co. A saving of up to 30% on operating costs, which equated to somewhere close to $75 million. Statoil were very pleased about that and turned around and said, do you know, we really ought to be thinking about more millennial teams. And I'm almost certain that the CEO at that point must have had a migraine, because he thought, oh, I'm going to end up with more remote controlled submarines. I'm sure I am. So if we have a look at various aspects of skills and abilities, baby boomers have great executive presence, and we would do because of our age. We're fairly cost effective as well. And we're good at building relationships and generating money. Gen X, who came before millennials, great, even better at generating revenue, better at collaborating, better at problem solving, better at relationship building, which then leads into you guys, who are superbly tech savvy and good at collaboration as well, and adaptable, more so than we are. So we all have our strengths and weaknesses. And we need to understand organizationally how we exploit those strengths and weaknesses within the hierarchy itself. It's not theoretical. Whilst it says here, working millennials have only about 3 or 5 years of work experience, but they've got 4 or more direct reports to them. It's not theory, that they're actually out there doing it. They're being managers and bosses. But who are they managers and bosses of? Well, that's Gen Z. And Gen Z are this remarkable bunch of people who you will be managing. I don't know the ages of you, I can't see you, but you may well be Gen Z yourself. If you're 17 or 18 years of age, maybe 19 years of age, coming into the workforce, born around about the end of the 90s, beginning to 2000, 18 or 19 years of age. So those are the people that you're going to be managing. Now, think about what their experiences are. Think about who they are. Well, it says here, born 1995, 2010, around about that. I would say probably a little bit later than that, 95, 98 probably. Very, very aware with it. As far as technology is concerned, all of it. And it's an interesting one. There was an interview with an American professor, and she was speaking to her students on the first day of the new term in September last year. And she turned around and she said, just to let you know that community service is going to give you X amount of credits, and you all have to do community service. And she was fully expecting the usual response, which was, yeah, I'm sorry, you know, my dog ate my community service, or I can't do it because I've got a bad back, or whatever it may be. It was the usual load of excuses that she was anticipating that she always got whenever she mentioned community service. And nobody said anything. And then a girl put her hand up in the front row and she went, okay, here we go, it's about to start. And she turned around and said, sorry, Professor, can I ask a question? Absolutely. Will the time that I spend on my non-profit organization count towards my community service? And she went, I've not been asked this one before. This is interesting. Yes, it will. And she saw a ripple run through the audience. And she turned around and she went, just out of interest, how many other people have their own non-profit organizations? And 50% of the class put their hand up. She went, never seen anything like it. That we've got a generation now who are looking to actively give back and contribute to community. She caught her by surprise. And it's something that we're coming across more and more. And we'll go into this in a little bit more detail, because according to research, we have different ways of working, of being familiar with tech, the way that we communicate, and our preferred management structure across X, millennials, and Z. If we go to straight into the middle, into millennials, which is, as I say, quite possibly you guys, interested in purpose, and basically the concept is we work in order to be able to live. If we go on to Gen Z, worryingly enough, yes, indeed, they're hard working, but if they don't like what they're receiving, they will job hop. And for anybody who's running a company, that's a problem. Because if you are recruiting and not retaining, you are constantly spending money on recruiting and training people and then losing that ability. You're losing those skills. And that is a real problem. It's a real problem. And that's something we need to be able to get our heads around. Naturally, on the tech side of things, Gen X, tech enables us to work more efficiently. We say we use desktops, as I do. Millennials, a lot more app focused. So those a lot more capable, really, of being able to be mobile. Wi-Fi everywhere for Gen Z. My own family, for example, there are three girls, and apparently, and I don't know how many of you are guys out there, and I don't know how many of you are married or single or whatever it may be, but apparently, and this is something that I was told, if you have a daughter, that's God's way of punishing you for everything you did in your 20s. And I've got 3. So you can make your own minds up as far as that one's concerned. The smallest one, if you lose Wi-Fi, it's like the end of the world. It's the sun has blacked over, another ice age has arrived. And, you know, I haven't got connectivity, you know, what is the problem here? And we don't get it, really. We really don't. We don't understand how important it is. And we have something called no tech at the table. And no tech at the table is about me going around the dinner table with a basket and saying, you know, you need to put your mobiles in here because we don't have tech at the table when we talk to each other. And it's, you know, for us, it's a sensible thing to do. Reluctantly, the small one is like, she's 19, not happy about this at all, really not happy. So I'm going, just put it in the basket, Claudia, just put it in the basket. She's going, so I'm going, okay, do you want to take a picture of your food and post it on Instagram? Is that what you want to do? She's going, no, I really do. Okay, all right. Take a picture of your food, post it on Instagram, and then give me your phone. She went, I love you so much, Daddy. I'm going, yeah, whatever. But it's the dependency. It's tech dependent. It's not tech familiar or tech savvy. It's tech dependent on Gen Z. The way that we communicate is interesting. we come from an era where we're not used to having feedback, not regular feedback anyway. And if we do get any feedback, it's incredibly structured. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, done. Thank you very much indeed. It didn't work that way, or doesn't work that way for millennials. As far as you're concerned, everything that you say has impact. It's got to be ongoing feedback. It's got to be transparent as well. And Gen Z are less likely to voice opinions because they understand what the knock-on effects might be. However, they won't splash it out there on Facebook. They will share it very, very privately. And that is absolutely key. It's a very private structure. As far as hierarchy is concerned, we're very much used to a boss, senior management, middle management, vice presidents, presidents, vice presidents, etc. We know the way that it works, and we're working to get up to CEO or vice president or senior vice president or whatever it may be. As far as millennials are concerned, that should be quite flat, and it should be a fast-track system, if you're capable, should push you through. But as far as Gen Z are concerned, same thing, but even quicker. So they're impatient and ridiculously impatient. So do expect that coming your way. Gen Z's always going to be connected. No matter what, Gen Z is going to be connected. And they will expect you to understand how they're connected and why. Interestingly enough, they tend to be very close to their parents. And when you think back over what they've had to go through and what they've seen their parents go through, 8 years ago was the global financial crisis. And they saw their parents struggle through that. They saw them have problems with how they made ends meet. And so they saw their parents in crisis, if you like. And what we see from Gen Z is a closer relationship with their parents than we would normally expect. Normally, it's kind of, you're leaving home and finding your own ways, etc. Gen Z tends to stay very, very close to their families. Very concerned about human impact on the planet, what we've done. Plastic in the oceans, whales dying because their guts are full of plastic bags. These guys are not just saying something about it, but they're doing something about it as well. So fully expect that within your workforce for them to bring that to your attention, because they believe that doing good should actually be central to the business mission of the organization that they work for. Interesting. They want to start working, and they want to get out there and find jobs without their parents helping them. And mine is a classic example. I got a WhatsApp message from the smallest one who turned around and said, "Oh, by the way, just to let you know, last week I started a job in an optician's." What? What? When did this happen? So she went, "Yeah, last week." I said, You didn't want to talk to us about this?" She said, "What were you going to say?" "Well, okay, all right. We were going to say that's really good news." She said, "Yeah, well, I knew that. So, I'll let you know how it's getting on. Anyway, busy right now, can't talk, bye." Yeah, okay, all right. Such is the life of a parent with children. They firmly believe that entrepreneurship should be taught in colleges, and it is, within Hult it is. We teach entrepreneurship at various levels. But they believe that this should be a standard thing, that every college and university should actually have entrepreneurship on their curriculum. They will be university educated. 50%, half of them will be university educated, compared to a third of millennials. So you're looking at a more educated generation coming through. Very, very used to smartphones and social media. They're very careful about what they post. They stay clear of risky behaviors. They would never post something like this, something that boomers or millennials might do. My boss is such a jerk, selfish, low-life prune that doesn't deserve me. Somebody posted this. This is true, actually. Someone posted this, and they forgot that they had added their boss as a friend on Facebook. And then the boss turns around and says, "You're right, I don't deserve you." You got 12 hours to clear out your office and clock out for the last time. Talk to me tomorrow about getting you your last paycheck. It's such a stupid thing to do. Millennials may do it. Gen Z, not the sort of thing that they do. They believe that communication is an important skill in order for them to be successful. Problem solving as well, in order for them to be successful. They recognize the fact that the majority of their communication is digital. So the ability to speak in public and to have strong communication skills, massively important to them. And they will look online for videos in order for them to be able to learn. They may attend courses, but chances are they'll do online courses in order to be able to improve their abilities. 85% watched at least one online video in the past 7 days in order to learn a new skill. Important. Don't try selling to them though. It's about trust. And the digital world is so important to them. If that video that they have learned in order to learn the basics of, say, playing the piano, if that can translate into trust, then there are advertisements that you can put on the back of it that can work in a marketing point of view. But trust has to be established first of all. It's not just something that they're going to throw themselves into and devote themselves to simply because you say so. It doesn't work that way. Multi-screens during one particular moment, and that will be happening throughout the day. I mean, the eldest two, or three in fact, will be sitting watching the television. That will be on. Both of them, or in fact all three of them, will have their phones without a doubt, and there'll probably be a couple of iPads going. Okay, and I will walk in and they'll go, yes, and I'm going, are you not watching this? Because I can turn it off. No, we're watching it. But I'm going, yeah, but you're on your phone and you're on your iPad. Yeah, it's what happens. And for a lot of us, we don't get that. We don't understand how that is possible. But multitasking and enough information out there that they will focus on three different things at the same time. 7.5 hours per day spent in front of a screen. I think mine do more than that. They give that a really good run. But they do have this feeling that, as I said before, volunteer, make an impact, social entrepreneurship. And that's a career choice for them. That's what they want to go and do. They want to be diverse. And I'm going to come on to that in a little bit shortly, because we'll see how we manage Gen Z. They want to be diverse. There's a lot of curiosity there. They do have this ability to multitask, which is key. And it's actually a really good thing. This is from Ernst & Young, who've done some surveys already on Gen Z, and that's just in the past few months. They may well be the most materially endowed, worth stating this one, technology saturated, formally educated generation our world has ever seen. How do we connect with these odd people? First of all, we give them control and preference settings, if you like. We can look at it from that point of view. Create your own workspace. You're in an area now where you can improve your own personal productivity. You can improve company processes, or at least Gen Z can, with your assistants. And I say your assistants because I'm thinking that you're millennials out there, and you will be able to relate to them a lot better than I can. So we'll need you at the early management stage to be able to do that. These do that they are natural. They think, and I think they're absolutely right, the ability to work with anybody is a skill, and an invaluable skill at that. Build it into your company videos, your company marketing, into your core values. Mention it regularly on social media, and then all of a sudden, Gen Z, when they are looking around and trying to find companies that they can relate to, all of a sudden they come across your company and they go, ah, okay, well, this is a company I can work for. because they are diverse and I believe in diversity. I have to laugh at this because I was walking past the back of one of my daughters, and she's sending a message, a WhatsApp message, and I know dads aren't supposed to look at it, but I couldn't help it. I walked past the back and I had a look at this, and I went, "Excuse me, what is that?" So she went, "It's Smiley Poo," and I went, "That triangular, brown triangular with a big Smiley Poo, I don't understand." She went, "Smiley Poo, I don't understand. I don't know anybody that I would send that to." She went, "God, Dad, you're so old." I went, "Probably, but you guys as millennials have the ability to speak in imagery, to speak in emojis, symbols, pictures, and videos, as I've said here, and because that's what Gen Z speak in. And if you can communicate with them on that level, then you are winning. You're starting to build a relationship, to communicate and to build trust. Help do this. I received an email the other day. Looking forward to seeing you in Hamburg, Chris. Big smiley face. I went, "Oh, that's pretty nice," And I thought, I haven't quite got the guts and the belief in myself to send back to the director of marketing a big smiley face yet. I'm sure I'll work up to it. But you have this as millennials. You have this natural relationship. You share communication habits. We struggle to work things out as baby boomers. So you're one step ahead of us. As I said before, snackable content, that's absolutely key. When we think about the short bursts, we think in thesis, you guys think in bites, and that's absolutely important because you can send a quick short burst of a video and all of a sudden that will mean an awful lot more to them than me sending a long email. Don't talk down to them. Whatever you do, they're adults. They're involved in so many things within the home. They've traveled. They're connected globally with all sorts of people around the world. They're culturally aware that they know that there's different ethnicities out there who bring different things to the table, and they love that. They embrace it. They're aware of things going on around the world, all sorts of different opportunities that are out there. They recognize that the world's got problems. They want to do their part. They want to play their part in that. I was really amazed when I saw this from Innovative Employee Solutions. I was absolutely stunned because when I was 19 or 20, and I couldn't imagine a situation where my parents would turn around and say, "Chris, what do you think about this sofa? Should we buy this sofa?" I'm going, "It's a sofa, Why do you want my input? I'm just going to sit on it. What about food for this week, Chris? What do you think we should do?" I just go to the fridge and there's food, And so it doesn't work that way with Gen Z. They say that they've got influence, that they're involved in family decisions. They are very industrious. They're incredibly industrious people. They're almost superheroes, which is superb. I mean, they're great to have around. Give them a task to do and see what they do with it. It may not be the same way that you do it, but they will do it. And you may learn something because they're entrepreneurs. 74% would rather start their own business and work for themselves. As I say, non-profit organizations abound when it comes to Gen Z. They're very, very, very industrious. From our point of view, and particularly at a baby boomer point of view, being humble doesn't come naturally. But you need to be able to ask them, how am I coming up to your expectations? If you don't understand what they need as an employer, that's a problem because there's every chance they'll go. And you then have to fill that position. And then you'll fill it with somebody the same age who has the same expectations. We need to understand them. And that's absolutely key. You understand, and you must understand what it is that they need and what they want in order to be able to grow your company for you and make sure both they and you succeed together. It's about collaboration and helping them collaborate with people around them. And if Dave wants to work from his rooftop at home, that's going to be fine. Dave, it's absolutely no problem whatsoever. As a manager, I would expect you to turn around and say, "Dave, what I need you to do today, 3 things. I need you to achieve 1, 2, and 3. Give me a shout if you get stuck on any of it, but check in with me at about 12 and then again at about 4 o'clock before you head out, okay? But give them parameters, all right? Don't just leave it out there. You're working from home. I love it. You're going to get loads done, but I definitely need these 3 things done, okay? Give them an internship. That would help. And mentioning tuition repayment, that's actually going to tie them into your company a little bit further. Don't feel as though you're trapping them. Talk to them and negotiate this. If you do anything like this, working in silos or not giving them sufficient resources or making sure that they fill in reports and approvals, overcomplicating it, creating a hierarchy, it will kill their creativity. And creativity is a very interesting one because we recognize the fact that while Gen Z are rewriting the rules of work, there are a few issues, and we're going to come to that in just 2 seconds. I'm going to give you an example of a company in London who are doing this, and they're called Football Radar. And what effectively they're doing is they're providing data, so they're hiring analysts who can go through a football match. I know the World Cup is on, and hopefully you're interested in it. And I chose it specifically because I thought, let's be topical. They analyze a football match and they provide all of the touches and the amount the players are involved and whether it's successful or not successful. All of that comes out as data, and that data is put together, run through an algorithm, and they provide that advice to the actual club itself. They sell the advice to the club, and they also sell it on to betting companies, so that when you get a text that comes through saying Sergio Aguero to score next in the next 10 minutes, 10-1, that has come from this company here, or one of these companies who do that. It's owned by Kasper Carlsen, a former Danish international. And what they offer is this. They've actually got in London at their head office or at their office, they've got chefs downstairs in the restaurant who will do you breakfast, lunch and dinner because they recognize it's expensive to live in London and it's even more expensive to eat there. So they provide everything. And in fact, the analysts tend to bring along their dates and they take their dates to their work so that they can get a free dinner. Not silly, very clever stuff. There's garden. You can take your laptop out and work in the garden. Relaxing area, ping pong, bit of football, all medical insurance paid for, but on site. So the doctor comes to you. There's a gym just around the corner, all fully subsidized. Stunning benefits package. They've got an ongoing intellectual challenge, which is you choose a course anywhere in the world. They will pay for you to go on the course, and they'll pay for your daily rate as well. Whatever you get paid as per normal. Whatever hours you want to work is entirely up to you. You've got a key card that will let you in, and it registered how much time you've worked. But for analysts, this is really important. You get your choice of equipment. So you get your choice of chair, your electronic desk, and the computer equipment that you want to work with. Your shout, entirely up to you. And one of the feedbacks comes in, and if we just go straight to the bottom line, it turns around and says, in practical terms, this is manifested in my taking on various further responsibilities, and my manager provides me with real mentorship. And that's exactly what they're looking for. That's exactly where we see this happening. The problem area is this. If you're constantly checking your social media status or anything, whether it be Twitter, whether it be Instagram, whatever it may be, and researchers said this happens between 56 and 106 times per day. Your brain stays in the now, and your imagination stays now. That's a bit of a problem because it means that it can't wander and it can't imagine. And that is a problem because it may well mean that this is the least creative generation that we've ever seen. So you need to help them get around that problem. They're going to make certain industries obsolete. There won't be queues outside banks when there's the ability to do all of your banking online. I can't remember the last time I personally went to a bank, but Gen Z will probably never set foot in one. They'll open it online, they'll run it online, they'll close it online. Supermarket queues, why? When you've got the ability to just go online and order whatever you want and it will be delivered within 40 minutes. Retail trade in the UK is just going through the roof. Global e-commerce expected to top $2 trillion in last year and more this year. It's not a question of one or the other, moving up or developing skills. Gen Z want to do both. Offer them that, and you've got a great workforce waiting to come and join your company. If everything that I've said is too crazy, and you still want to impress Gen Z, do these two things. Population increased by more than 400% over the 20th century. They reckon by 2100, 11 billion people will be on the planet. Right now, 1.2 billion people don't have access to clean water. 1.7 billion people in 2 years' time. No access to clean water. Just imagine that the next time you go and turn on a tap, nothing comes out. You have to walk 10 miles to go and get water. Think that one through. There's going to be a 70% increase in food demand by 2050. Meanwhile, with the current rates of soil loss, we've only 59 harvests left on average. 59 harvests. You didn't do that, we did that. Boomers did this. We ate all the food. We ate all of that without any great thoughts about how it was going to be replaced. And from my generation to your generation, the message is, really sorry. Didn't mean to do that, but we did. So it's your problem to sort out. The issue is not that the problems are too big. It really isn't. The issue is that we just don't dream big enough anymore. But it's okay. You're in the right place. Because at Hull, we help you dream big. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. It's an extremely insightful presentation. I think now we're going to open the floor a little bit for some Q&As for 10 to 15 minutes. So feel free to start putting your questions in. I see we already have a few going on right now. I'll go ahead and I'll start. I have a few that I've already compiled, Chris. So I can go ahead and ask them too, no problem. They'll continue to come in. So the first one we received was, at a certain point in time, wouldn't it be true that millennials have picked up characteristics from Gen Z, especially on the tech savvy part? Yeah,
I would say that's absolutely true. It's not so much that millennials have picked up characteristics from Gen Z, because millennials came first. Millennials were the first digital natives, if you like. You were the ones who brought all of this together. And that's what Gen Z have learned. They do not know a time when there hasn't been social media. They don't know a time, and they can't think of a time where that has happened. So you've given them that information. You haven't picked it up from them. They've taken it from you, and they've developed it even further. Make sense?
Yep. Okay, so the next question here, we actually have from Anna. Is it possible to apply all of the above character traits that you mentioned to different nationalities, considering that every country and some cultures are so much different?
Do you know, funnily enough, because it's the level of digital awareness. Put it this way: a 14-year-old in this country, in the UK, will have more in common with a 14-year-old in India than they will do with someone my age in this country. Okay? This is travel, because the internet is what it is, and social media is what it is. And the conversations that happen are what they are. There is such a blending and a leveling out of abilities and understanding right the way across the board. So yes, I mean, I understand the question is cultures and whatever may be very, very different. When we think about the way that communication takes place on that flat playing field, on that digital playing field, it works right the way across the board.
Okay. Another question from Gabriella. Before I ask it, though, I will mention again to you guys, I see a few people with their hands up. Please put all your questions in the Q&A section or the chat section so that we can read them out. In case you are unsure of where that is, it's at the bottom of the presentation here. But okay, from Gabriella, she said, how can we have a good conversation between baby boomers, Generation Z, millennials? What would be a good channel? Is it better to talk face-to-face, emailing? It's getting difficult to understand.
Yeah, it is. This is part of the problem because we work in different ways. And so here's the challenge. I'm not saying I've got all the answers for you. This is your challenge. I would strongly suggest that if, and there's a question that's come in here that talks about what I've talked about is how baby boomers relate to Gen Z, nothing about how Gen Z should relate to baby boomers. Baby boomers are new into the industry. We're getting our heads around them. And what I'm looking at is, particularly from my point of view, I cannot see this from a Gen Z point of view. I would need my daughter sitting next to me, who and I would need to talk to her and go, what do you think? I have to look at it from a baby boomer point of view, because that's who I am. And I look at it as a business owner and how easy or difficult it's going to be in order for me to be able to motivate people who work for me. So yeah, I mean, I get that. I definitely get that. The conversations that you have with millennials as a baby boomer are going to be different from the conversations millennials have with Gen Z, because I would hope that they would be talking in slightly shorter bursts and in a different digital format. The way that we talk to millennials needs to change, definitely, without a doubt. We need to be able to make sure that we are adjusting to the new form of management coming through. So when we're if we're putting a presentation together, make the PowerPoint interesting. Don't just have loads of words up there like baby boomers used to. It was like sitting through a thesis sometimes. It was ridiculous. And you'd find that people would get very frustrated by that. So hopefully we've changed, and the way that we communicate with millennials has changed. The gulf between boomers and Gen Z is huge. I mean, I cannot emphasize this enough. And you're going to find that is difficult to bridge, which is why you need millennials in there in order to be able to talk to them. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any more questions? I think one just came in. Marie said, do you feel that Gen Z essentially idolizes baby boomers for their life and achievements in general rather than their own generation? If yes, what is the main reason for this?
I don't think they do. I honestly don't think they do. From what I understand, that there is Gen Z are there in order to be able to clear up the mess that boomers have made, particularly when it comes to the environment. This is a wagging finger from them to turn around and go, look what you've done. Global warming. You've just raped the planet. It's down to us to be able to take care of it. And I'm not totally sure that idolizing boomers comes into it at all. From my point of view, I'm a little bit disappointed because I'd love them to, but I don't think that's actually happening. So no, I don't see that happening. And the research that I've come across doesn't emphasize that at all.
Okay. And noted here that Gabriella responded to your previous response, and she thinks that letters and email and mailings have actually seemed to work better and receive a more clear message to the younger generations than face-to-face.
Yeah, I think so, because younger generations are quite used to a digital message. So if they receive the correctly structured digital message, then that could actually work. But Gen Z recognize they need face-to-face communication, And I would emphasize this point because, and I've made this point time and time again, the ability to be able to speak, the ability to be able to talk to people is absolutely key. Because if you have a great idea and you lack the ability to convey that great idea, what happens to that great idea? I'll tell you what, it stays your great idea. Nobody gets to hear about it, and that doesn't help you. So while Gen Z need to be able to work on their ability to communicate face to face and to be able to problem solve in a team, they also like receiving, and I don't deny this at all, it's absolutely true, they like receiving information through a digital format. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Okay, we have a couple more here. Gina has asked, with the different characteristics between generations, how come companies are still using standardized psychometrics tests as a requirement for employment opportunities?
In a nutshell, I would say it's because the companies who are promoting psychometric tests believe that they're still relevant and therefore promote them. And us lot, boomers, have said, well, it's always worked, so why won't it work now? So we haven't seen sufficient in the input of Gen Z, because bearing in mind, I mean, you're looking at 21, 22, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22-year-olds who are just entering the marketplace, who are just entering the workforce. So, there isn't enough in there for us to be able to say, no, we need something completely different. It's an interesting one because, for example, L'Oreal ran an ad for their interns in China last year. And what usually happens when they have their interns or the ad for the interns is that 250,000 Chinese potential interns write and say, yes, please, here's my CV. Well, last year, L'Oreal did something very different. They turned around and said, what we want you to do is answer these 3 questions. And one of the questions was, if we gave you $2,000 tomorrow, what 3 things could you implement within the next 7 days? Well, suddenly you had a massive reduction in the amount of people who were throwing the CVs because they didn't want CVs. It was only later that they were going to ask for them. This was the immediate weeding out process. So they wanted to see a creative mind pop in and say, here's what I would do. And they openly admitted, they said, look, the person that we eventually hired for this role in China as an intern, if she just sent us her CV, we wouldn't even have taken it to the next stage. She wouldn't have got through it. However, what she showed was creativity. And that was important. So yes, I'm not saying baby boomers running organizations totally disconnected with the rest of the world. That's not true. Totally reliant on psychometric exercises in order to be able to hire people. Also not true. Because we're seeing it coming through gradually, but it's a slow burn at the moment. It's going to get there eventually, but not in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, we've actually had a couple of responses to your comment also on digital communications.
Yeah.
David pointed out mindfulness and how it emphasizes focusing on one thing and the benefits of face-to-face conversation. Is this all to be lost? And are we seeing less of this?
I would be very upset because I do an awful lot. I do something called neurolinguistic programming. So I like sitting in front of someone. NLP is about eye movement, body language, relation to language, relation to speech and the words that you use, and the way that you talk about things. But it's about body language, effectively, NLP. And I gauge an awful lot about an individual if I can sit and talk to them, because it's not really about what they say; it's about how they say it. So I would be devastated if we lost that, ability to be able to talk to people and to say, look, this is what I think, and I would throw you this question, and I want to see this response from you. I would be very upset if we lost that ability.
Okay, I think we have one more. So from Yadul again, do you feel that Gen Z and millennials have a basic issue about being accepted in whatever they do? Being habitual of this expectation, can they actually lead when it is most required?
I think what we're going to see is leadership of a different kind. And that's my theory at the moment. I think we're going to see something that we've not seen previously. It's going to be more collaboration as opposed to hierarchy. We've talked about this. I talked about this in the presentation. It's not so much about hierarchy. It's about collaboration with people. It's not sort of top down. It's kind of like an oval with somebody taking a leading role. But that leading role may well change depending on the abilities of the team itself and who is best suited to be able to lead that team in that next particular project. I think we're going to see a definite movement in that. We would find that very difficult because as far as we're concerned, we've worked all our lives to get to that level. All of a sudden you're saying that level doesn't exist. What's going on? I think there'll be a lot of resistance from boomers who've spent their lifetime working up to that high level in order for somebody to turn around and go, well, that doesn't exist anymore. What we have is this circular collaboration with somebody who is part of the team taking responsibility for the results and for moving the thing forward. I think that, for my mind, that's how I see organizations working within the next 10 to 15 years.
Okay. And he also asked, would they be able to lead governments and administrations?
You've hit the nail on the head here, because I work with governments and I work with administration, and I would say that it's going to happen eventually. I cannot see that happening within the next 15, 20 minutes, or even within the next 10 years. It's hard, making that change. And I go back to what I talked about at the very beginning, working in the Middle East and working on something called culture change. Culture change in Saudi was, it was just almost a bridge too far. I don't know if we've got anyone who's in Saudi at the present time watching this. Maybe you can tell me that things have changed dramatically in the last 18 years. I hope they have.
We do.
I would, we actually managed to achieve that, though. We achieved a portion of it. There was a case of 2 steps forward, 1 step back, then another step back, and then maybe another step back, and then 2 steps forward, and then a step forward. So you were kind of like getting there eventually. But that was 18 years ago thinking, and that was very, very different. That was hard work, But yeah, there is a requirement for governments and administrations to be able to adapt to what is happening out there. And it hasn't even happened it's only happening right now in advanced organizations who can see the way that things, see the writing on the wall, reading that and say, we have to change. Governments and administrations are very, very firm in the way that they work at the moment. Thank you very much. That's the way that we'll keep it working until somebody turns around and says, look, here's proof this doesn't work anymore. And in which case they'll have to change. Okay.
Let's see. Do you have time for any more questions, Chris?
I do. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So again, following on the same conversation we have, are you suggesting that we are moving towards an administrative political crisis in terms of stability and leadership globally?
No, I'm not. I'm saying that we're looking at a change in the way that we do things. And that change will reflect, if it's happening in governments and administrations, that change will reflect what is happening in organizations and companies globally. That's what I'm saying. But it's not going to be, they're not going to be the world leaders in this. They're going to follow, sometimes dragging their heels, and sometimes not at all. So you're not looking at every government around the world moving at exactly the same pace as the most advanced company within their country. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. So what we're looking at is information regarding the change in structure and administration of organizations and companies will gradually, over a period of time, filter outwards to other organizations who will then have people who may well be entering government and will then be able to influence the way that government and administrations work. It's a slow burn. It's not going to happen overnight.
Okay, I think that is all the questions for now. I want to thank you again very much, Chris, for the presentation. It was very great, and I also want to thank everyone for joining us today. As we've said earlier, a recording of this presentation will be sent around as a follow-up email in the next few days. Additionally, if you'd like more information on our courses, please make sure you visit www.holt.edu. If you feel this was useful, we have a number of other thought leadership webinars coming up. The next one is actually on July 3rd with Professor Mark Esposito discussing the megatrends of 2018. So thank you guys. I hope you enjoy the rest of your evenings or days, wherever you may be. I hope you join us again. And if you are actually coming to study at Holt this September, we welcome you soon. See you all, everyone.
Take care. Bye-bye.